Calling this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag to the republic, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We all just stand, or does anyone lead us in taking our oaths of office?
You just stand and raise your right hand and you can read them together.
Only you're still on. You don't have to do it again. You have another year to go. Just those of us who are newbies, you've just been reelected.
I, Barney White, do swear and affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland
and support the Constitution and laws thereof, and that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment, diligently and faithfully, without partiality or prejudice, execute the office of council member according to the Constitution and laws of this state. First order of business is the officer positions on the council for this coming year, and I'd like to ask Rich Mercado if you could make a resolution.
Sure. I move to appoint Joy White, Mayor, Barney Rush, Vice Mayor, myself as Secretary, Carlo Colella as Treasurer, and Tambra Leonard as Community Liaison.
Is there a second for this resolution? I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Welcome, Madam Mayor.
Right, thank you.
And we can switch, if you want to be in the middle, unless you don't care.
I'll sit
Okay, so you have more space than it.
Next, I'd like to hear a motion for the assignment of committee liaisons for the next fiscal year.
Okay.
Are we doing it? Are you doing it? Okay.
I move that the following council members serve as council liaisons to the following town committees. For Climate and Environment, Carlo Colella. Community Relations, Joy White. Land Use, Barney Rush. Long Range Planning, Tambra Leonard. And Public Services, Rich Brancato.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next on the agenda, the April 2026 financial report. May I turn that over to the treasurer, please?
So the financial report reflects financial activity through April 30th of this year. So that's 10 months into our 12-month fiscal year, or approximately 83%. Through that period of time, we've received 81% of our revenue budgeted for the fiscal year. So that's just slightly over $4 million of our $5 million annual budgeted revenue. On the expense side, we're also at 81% of budgeted operating expenses for the fiscal year, at $3.2 million of total budget for the year, just under $4 million. On the capital side, we've expended 73% of capital expenditures for the year. That represents $626,000 of the annual budget amount for that category of $853,000. Just as a reminder, the capital expenditures are things like asphalt and concrete work, park improvements, town office improvements, and IT. All that said, we're very comfortably on track to complete our fiscal year within budget. And within the packet, there's a lot of details. If you've got, if you want to go into the details, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to try and address them. Any questions?
Thank you, Carlo. Next, over to Todd for the town manager's report.
Thanks, Joy. I'll review some of the initiatives undertaken by town staff over the past month. There's been quite a lot going on, so I won't try to belabor any specific point. But the staff has communicated with the State Highway Administration about Bradley Lane restriping or lane shifting to move the lanes effectively farther from the sidewalk on the north side. And we've just learned recently that this work is scheduled to be completed by the end of June. They were able to retain a contractor to do this work. At first, they thought they might need federal approval for the work, but they've actually retained a contractor to do striping work, and we expect it to be done by the end of June, and that still stands as of today. We also met with the State Highway Administration and the Chevy Chase Club to discuss obstructed sight lines, motorist sight lines, and pedestrian sight lines caused by the retaining wall at the corner of Bradley Lane and Connecticut Avenue. I'm having some follow-up discussions with the club manager, and I'll report more when I speak with her. The staff also communicated with the State Highway Administration and Montgomery County Department of Transportation about light signal timing at Elm Street and Wisconsin Avenue. And very quickly, MCDOT responded by adjusting the signal there to allow more time for motorists on westbound Elm Street to turn onto northbound Wisconsin Avenue. I haven't heard any feedback about whether it's better or not, but I'm hoping it is, or we could ask them to revisit it. We also communicated with the State Highway Administration about intersection congestion at Willow Lane and Wisconsin Avenue. And the SHA agreed to look at signage improvements there to reinforce the don't block the box restrictions that would provide motorists unobstructed access to eastbound Willow from southbound Wisconsin. And we've also communicated with the SHA about hedge trimming along Connecticut Avenue. And I'll get into that issue a little bit more in a few seconds. The staff communicated with Purple Line officials about shielding of the lights on the ramp and on the bridge, or the ramp primarily, or only on the ramp, and some additional lights across the bridge over the Purple Line tracks. I have not received an update from Dan Norman, who's the PLT representative I'm dealing with, who's assisting us on this project. I've sent him a number of emails, but I haven't heard anything back. So I'll keep trying to get a hold of him, and I'll provide an update as soon as possible. Staff communicated with Maryland Municipal League officials about their legislative advocacy efforts, and we've scheduled a meeting with municipalities and MML leadership for May 29th. We also addressed changes to the accessory dwelling unit regulations to conform to state law, which we need to conform to by October 1st of 2026, and which we'll be discussing this evening. We also assisted with drafting correspondence and testimony about the Montgomery Pearl development, and we addressed potential workforce housing project on Connecticut Avenue. Staff also attended weekly speed camera meetings, and the application to the State Highway Administration has been submitted. It was submitted on May 14th. We also learned that the State Highway Administration's Office of Traffic and Safety doesn't involve itself in reviewing these applications any longer. It hasn't for actually a while, which will make the application for a speed camera be processed much more quickly by the District 3 officials, engineers who serve Montgomery County. Staff also prepared an application for the balance of our program open space funds for improvements to the Thornapple Path. And we are still looking and continuing to address modifications to the Thornapple Path gate to make it ADA compliant. We managed the 2026 election and the FY27 budget process. The council adopted the budget at its annual meeting on May 5th. We also organized the candidates event, which I understand was very well attended. We organized the attended the May 5th annual meeting. We certified the tax rates, the 27 tax rates to the county and state. We also certified the election results to the State Board of Elections. We also issued invitations for bids for our landscaping and tree maintenance contracts, which are expiring this year, and they are currently out to bid, and we're waiting for bids to come in. I believe the closing date is early June. We also continued discussions of ongoing Climate and Environment Committee initiatives related to recycling and native landscaping. You'll hear about the first of those this evening. We planted a total of 74 trees as part of the spring tree planting program, 34 on public property, 40 on private property. And we organized and managed the spring trash and treasures event and continued to provide project support to town committees. Adding to that list, we installed speed humps on East Avenue, just completed yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. And we also prepared to re-landscape three right-of-way areas with native plants as part of our public landscape area improvement program. I told you I'd revisit the overgrown vegetation issue, and we have begun our spring survey, our annual survey of overgrown vegetation, vegetation specifically that overhangs streets and sidewalks that's on private property. And that process is ongoing with both staff and an intern that we have currently supporting us and working with the staff. The first tranche of letters for violations will go out this week to residents, primarily those along in the southwest quadrant of town, along Bradley, eastern part of Bradley, and the southern part of Connecticut. And the staff and the intern will continue to do the survey work to identify other violations and send letters accordingly. We give 30-day remediation timeframe, and we ensure that we notify if we don't see the remediation has occurred. We, after 30 days, will send a letter at least 10 days before the town or its contractor takes care of the violation. We have a new map book that we've created, which provides a grid system that identifies specific areas of town. So it's really been helpful in identifying and tracking violations much easier with that system. And so that's been a very useful tool for us. And that concludes the staff report.
Thank you, Todd. I'd like to move on to the National Gun Violence Awareness Day proclamation that we as a town will make. We have done this for several years now, and we don't do this lightly. We do not, as a general rule as a town, take positions on national policy because we are a town of 3,000 people, and there's a lot of things that we cannot affect, but certainly gun violence affects everyone regardless of where they are, regardless of the size of the community. So I'd like to read this proclamation, and this will, if you listen to the details and bear with me, you'll understand what the town's position is on this. This proclamation declares the first Friday in June to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the town of Chevy Chase to honor and remember all victims and survivors of gun violence, and to declare that we as a country must do more to end this public health crisis. Whereas every day, nearly 130 people in the United States are killed by gun violence, and more than 200 are shot and wounded, with an average of more than 19,000 gun homicides every year. And whereas people in the United States are 26 times more likely to die by gun homicide than people in other high-income countries. And whereas Maryland has 797 gun deaths every year, with a rate of 13.1 deaths per 100,000 people, a crisis that costs the state $10.5 billion each year, of which almost $384 million is paid by taxpayers, and causing Maryland to have the 27th highest rate of gun violence in the United States. And whereas gun violence prevention is more important than ever, as we see gun violence continue to impact communities across the country. And whereas gun violence has reached our local schools with multiple firearm incidents in Montgomery County public schools during the 2025-2026 academic year, including shootings at Wooten High School and Blake High School, prompting MCPS to launch an AI weapons detection pilot at Bethesda Chevy Chase High School and other campuses, and to urge families to store firearms safely in the home. And whereas in 2013, Hadia Pendleton was tragically shot and killed at the age of 15, and a group of Hadia's friends asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange on her birthday, the first Friday in June, a color they chose because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods. And whereas to recognize the 29th birthday of Hadia Pendleton on June 5th, 2026, the first Friday in June, people across the United States will recognize the 12th annual National Gun Violence Awareness Day and wear orange in tribute to Hadia Pendleton and other victims of gun violence, as well as the loved ones of those victims. And whereas by wearing orange on June 5th, 2026, Americans will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the hands of people who should not have access to them, and to encourage responsible gun ownership to keep our families and communities safe. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of Chevy Chase declares June 5th, 2026, the first Friday in June, to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the town of Chevy Chase, to support efforts to prevent the tragic effect of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. Now let's move on to our public comments period. This is an open period for residents to make comments to the council. If you have any comments regarding the 3 public hearings that are ongoing this evening, that is regarding the variance on West Avenue, the resolution on parking on Rosemary Street, or the ordinance regarding hedge regulations, please don't make your remarks during the public comment section because we will be taking your comments during those hearings. Do we have any public comments today? If you do, please go to the microphone, state your name and your address.
Hi, Grant Davies, 4313, excuse me, Bradley Lane. It's a question I have. There's a house on East that's been under construction that Barney signed a stop work order on. It's pretty ugly, and it's been sitting there for months now. And I just wonder what the town is able to do or is doing about it. So.
Thanks for your comment, Grant.
Sure. That house is been under construction for quite a while. The builder is having home license registration issues with the county. So my understanding is there's some issues with them being able to continue the construction at the county level. We issued a stop work order because one of the walls that they were supposed to retain was removed and needs to be relocated. But until I guess they get the registration issue sorted out with the county's Department of Consumer Affairs, I think it's likely that that'll sit for a while. I know we've been in contact with the county about the overgrown vegetation. I've tried to get a hold of the builder to get the yard maintained and haven't gotten a response, but we'll continue to keep at it. And ultimately, I guess if we need to go onto the property to do that remediation work, probably in coordination with the county, we will. But until the registration and the building license issue is sorted out with the county, I don't think any construction is going to be allowed to continue. Yeah, the existing house that they were building an addition to was non-conforming. So right now the foundation wall, which they've retained, doesn't meet the current setback, but the walls are being modified to conform to the town setback requirement. And the reason we have a stop work order is because the existing wall was at 7 feet, and since they took it down, the new wall has to be relocated 8 feet from the side property line. Seems like it could be a while, and there's some uncertainty with whether they'll be able to continue with the construction or if they'll need to try to sell it to someone to finish the construction, or if either the town or the county tries to condemn the property and require the house to be demolished if it sits for too long. But we generally, in those situations, would let the county take the lead just due to the expense and their expertise in handling that. Yeah, like I said, I've been in pretty constant contact with the county, and they're working, through their legal process. So then these things, when they start sitting, can't sit for a while before they get a court order to condemn it if that's where it ends up going. But that's sort of a last resort, and our ability to do anything to facilitate the construction is really limited because we don't own the property and we just issue a permit for the work.
Do we have other comments?
Hi, I'm Murray Horwitz. I live at 3903 Rosemary Street. I hadn't planned on speaking, but the resolution about Gun Violence Prevention Day, which is great, just made me wonder, unless I missed something, there's nothing about the number of gun-related deaths in Montgomery County. You went the nation and Maryland, and my son, who's a Montgomery County homicide detective, reports that there are about 24 in Montgomery County homicides. If you add suicides, are probably, and he said the vast majority are gun related. So I thought you might want to amend that proclamation to include Montgomery County.
Other comments? Do we have any comments from people participating online? If you do, please use the hand icon to raise your hand.
I didn't see it.
Thanks, Todd. Let's move on from the public comment period and begin our public hearings. Our first hearing is on the variance for 6801 West Avenue. I'm going to turn the floor over to the town attorney, Ron Bolt, to explain to us the process of conducting a variance hearing.
Yes,
and then
thank
move
you.
on to Dave to explain just the outlines of the variance.
Okay, yes, we're here for the hearing on the variance request regarding 6801 West Avenue. There is in the packet a staff report. The hearing will begin with a presentation by the applicant, and the applicant can please let us know who's going to be speaking on behalf of the applicant. After the applicant's presentation, we'll move to questions of the council. After that, if there's anyone else here who wants to make a comment or ask a question, you'll have the opportunity to do so. Then we will go to the applicant again for a rebuttal. And the applicant can please note that the town council has had the opportunity to review the materials in advance. So don't feel like you have to address everything in your application, but please feel free to state what you'd like. After the rebuttal, the record will close and the council will deliberate and then entertain a motion directing me to prepare a decision, either approving or denying the request. Please note that if the request is approved, it's not final until it's written up. So you won't be able to get your permit until that variance decision is issued, and that's usually a process that takes a week or two. We would ask that before anyone speak tonight, please wait till you're identified by the mayor, and please state your name and street for the record. And with that, well, one question, Dave, in the staff report, there was no public comments received as of May 15. Has there been any in the last 4 days?
We have not received any public comments.
Okay, thank you, sir. And unless Dave has anything else to add, we can please move to the applicant's presentation. So is there someone here representing the applicant?
My name is Leila Fendrick. I'm a landscape architect, and my office is at 6904 West Avenue in the town of Chevy Chase. I grew up in the town of Chevy Chase on Leland Street, and so I'm very familiar with the neighborhood. We are working on a project at 6801 West Avenue, which is at the corner of West and Ridge Street. And it's a small house that was beautifully renovated, but it has a difficult location being on a corner and close to the commercial district. Our client currently lives out of town, but she will be moving here within the year. And I met with her and her daughter, who is local. Their goal, because the mother's property, the owner, is on the corner, she would like to put up a 36-inch high wrought iron fence just inside the property line. The first variance we're applying for is for a 42-inch high gate on the West Avenue side, which will have an arching top. So it'll be 6 inches higher than the 36-inch high wrought iron fence. The second variance we're applying for is to build a set of front steps within an archway that's closer to the entry door. So we would like to remove the angled walkway and steps that lead to the intersection of Ridge and West and deter people from feeling like they could go up to the front door, close off that corner, but build a new set of front steps and as well as a walkway out to the West Avenue Street. So these are our two moves to make to create a more private garden space and private residence for the owner. Does anyone have any questions?
I just
I would just add for the council's benefit. Oh, sorry, Rich. So the council will recall that the wrought iron fence was approved by variance in December of 2025. And so tonight's request is for a slightly different location at the property line instead of slightly inside. And then this request also removes an angled portion that was previously proposed that's no longer needed due to the removal of the existing walkway.
Thank you.
Rich?
No, I was
No, that was
going to
gonna be your
remind
comment.
everybody that we had already approved the variance for the fence.
Oh, good.
I see D. Harris online has a comment or a question. Okay, certainly. Go ahead, Bernie.
Just curious, thinking about the fence, and then there's also going to be a 3-foot hedge as well. Where will the fence be? Which side of the hedge will the fence be on?
The hedge will be on the inside of the fence. We're trying to put the fence just inside the property line, and the hedge is not a continuous hedge. It's a segment of hedging within a service berry between each segment of fencing. And because there is a dry well labeled as dry well B on the site plan that was designed by Cass Engineering for the developers, a portion of the front yard is very difficult to plant in. And then the town has established a 2-foot zone of no planting around the dry wells. So that's limiting to us to where we can put hedging. So we're observing those structures or limitations. And we want to try to claim the front yard as much as possible and have a wrought iron fence, which is very transparent. Because it's such an open fence, and I think you've all seen the drawings of the fence and elevation, and we have elevations of the front of the house and the side of the house. It's not going to look very heavy or prominent at all, but the hedge is inside it and the serviceberry trees are inside it. So both of those species were selected to be wet soils tolerant because they're going to be close to one of the dry wells, and they're both native species.
Okay, thank you.
I did want to add one thing. We did get, the last time the applicant was in here for variances, we were concerned about the sight lines at the intersections. And we had our town traffic engineer look at them, and he feels that the sight lines are generous enough along those sidewalk, the planting setbacks along both West and Ridge to help assure that there is adequate sight lines. And I just want to verify that that's the case. You're going to that those sight lines will be maintained.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been working closely with Dave of the town to have him make comments throughout this entire design process, and it's been a long process. But because the trees are deciduous and they'll be high branching at 5 or 6 feet above the ground, we're trying not to block the sight lines. We're highly aware that there is a lot of traffic on both streets, and the client may choose to pollard and bleach the trees and elevate the lower branches above the ground and keep them very clipped. So we'll wait and see when she moves in how she'd like to prune them. But they will be single stem service berries, not multi-stemmed. So they'll be more open, you know, from ground to 4 feet or ground to 5 feet above the grade than if they were multi-stemmed and branching lower to the ground. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the council?
We had a question online. Dee Harris.
Yeah, it's more a comment than a question. I just wanted to say that I think that the design is both lovely and very thoughtfully done. Kudos to Leela. And I'm totally supportive of the plan to make the changes. I'm the neighbor that's directly opposite across Ridge Street from the property. So
Thank you.
wanted to say I think it's a wonderful, beautiful design. Thank you for your thought that went into it.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any other comments or questions from residents?
No,
I make a motion to approve the variance for the front yard fence and front yard setback for the stoops and stairs at 6801 West Avenue.
Wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Wonderful.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and our client will be thrilled. Thank you.
And Ron, can you remind the applicant again?
Yes, yes. So
this
we'll
is not-
draft. Oh, sorry.
Go
Ms.
ahead.
Martin.
Go ahead.
So we will draft the decision. It's usually a process that takes about a week or two. And once that's been reviewed and approved by the council, then the applicant can get their building permit. Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is a public hearing, which is a resolution to prohibit parking on certain sections of Rosemary Street. I'm going to ask the Assistant Town Manager, Dave Walton, to explain the background on this particular situation.
Sure. So this is sort of the end result of some work that was done by the Public Services Committee based on some complaints that we'd received from Rosemary Street residents last year about the difficulty sometimes of navigating down Rosemary Street due to traffic congestion, both related to arrival and dismissal at the school, in addition to difficulty that large vehicles like school buses and landscape trucks sometimes had making their way down the block, given sort of the density of parking on certain sections of the street. So it often resulted in situations where cars couldn't bypass each other or couldn't get from Rosemary Street onto Rosemary Circle or from Rosemary Circle onto Rosemary Street. So the proposal is to create a no parking area just west of the intersection of Rosemary Street and Meadow Lane to create a bypass lane that's a little bit longer than what is sometimes there now, taking advantage of a fire hydrant in order to create a long section of no parking to make sure that large vehicles bypass each other. And the other recommendation is to remove 5 parking spaces that currently sit between Rosemary Circle and the entrance to the school parking lot, in order to allow that curb lane to be used by parents that are queuing to drop off or pick up their children, which should ensure that the center travel lane is open and available for cars that are trying to just get under the circle and be on their way. So that is the proposal. In addition, there is a proposal to add parking space markings on sort of the south hemisphere of Rosemary Circle, between Rosemary and Rosemary, where Hillcrest comes in, just to help sort of facilitate more efficient parking in that area. And I've reviewed that with the town's traffic engineer, and we did get a request from a resident to make sure that their front walkway wasn't blocked by a parking space. And we can accommodate leaving the area in front of both front walkways open without any parking, without losing any of the proposed parking spaces. So if it's approved, we'll make those parking space markings and leave those walkways open.
Can you confirm, will the areas where the Public Services Committee recommends restricting parking, would that be restricted all the time or only during school hours?
The proposal is to restrict it all the time.
Do you have any other comments from council members on this?
Public hearing
Yep.
first.
Okay, okay. Any comments from the public? Please, could you come to the microphone, state your name and address?
Hi. First of all, let me say we appreciate this opportunity to comment.
Could you, your name, please?
And yeah, we'll give we're Michael and Georgia Guin. We're at 4006 Rosemary Street. And we are directly across from the spaces that are proposed to be removed. And we're directly affected, obviously, by this whole thing. I'd like to, if I could, look and give some, both the October and I believe it was the February meeting of the PSC, and I think even David mentioned it, has really focused on school drop-offs and school pickups. And that's an understandable issue. But the proposed resolution goes far beyond that and does not focus on school drop-offs and pickups. It would remove those parking places basically permanently for everybody, parking places that we have to use and people at different times use. So what I would say is that we fully understand the need on drop-off and pickups to somehow facilitate that process. But we do not understand why those spaces would be removed at other times. And those times are basically done by 9 in the morning. We've lived there 30 years. Those are done, 8 and 9 is the drop-off period. And 3 to 4 is the pickup period. And the street is basically quiet after that. Now, quiet relatively because Rosemary is a cutoff, a cut-through street, as you well know. But so our concern is that if there are to be any restrictions, it'd be limited to those times of drop-off and pickups, those 2 hours a day, and there not be any other restrictions on those for any other time. We're also very concerned, in fact, probably most concerned, that doing away with those 5 spaces, I'm not talking about the other end of the block, those are fine, but doing away with those 5 spaces is actually going to create a major safety problem. It will increase speed on the street. It will lead to increased cutoff on the street. And with students in the school, it's going to make a thoroughfare right in front of the school. And we believe we've worked years to make that a safer place. And we think we ought to continue to make it a safe place. Now, having said all that, that's our first major concern. Our second major concern is local. We will be affected by any restrictions in those parking places. We are the logical place for anybody who cannot park there will park in front of our house. It will definitely increase parking there. And we already have some problems. I must confess, those problems have been enormously improved when the school downsized. It's really helped us, and the school has been very cooperative. And we like all of that. But if those spaces are removed, we will be in trouble. And there's no way of avoiding that. We also recognize that 3 of our other neighbors who are close by just don't want to be bothered with permit parking because they have 1 car or they can handle the rest the other way and they're not concerned. But if there are to be restrictions on those spaces, then we would ask that we be given 2 spaces in front of our house to the other side of the shared driveway, so that we would be able to manage and we often use those spaces across. We come home, everything's filled, we'll be in the spaces across the street. So I would ask you to look at those 2 things. We think that's consistent. We've seen in the town, we don't know all the details, but wherever you have no parking on any side, there's typically permit parking on the other side. So if they're going to really restrict the other side, then we would like permit parking. The last comment I would make is, keep in mind that people coming from Connecticut before school hours cannot go to the Triangle. They can't park there. They can't, that's no entry. I know people may disagree, but parking on the Circle, 1, is not easy at all, if you've ever tried it. And secondly, it could make things complicated as well. So those are our comments, and we really appreciate and hope you'll take them into account.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other comments here in the room before we go to anyone online? Please come to the microphone, state your name and address.
Cliff Greenblatt, 3901 Rosemary Street. So at the other, I'll speak for the other end from where Michael is, at the corner of Rosemary and Meadow. So I think the no parking would be right in front of our house. My concern is like Michael's first concern, which is that I think there is a natural slowing process by having parking on the streets. As it is, we see people who see that green light and their eyes get big and they accelerate as they go toward Connecticut on Rosemary Street. I think making it, a thoroughfare is going to increase speed and could lead to safety issues. There's a lot of kids right in there, and it's, just could be an issue. I understand the pressures of having to deal with all the school folk. It's sort of like we'll now direct everyone onto Rosemary Street out this way, and it will become the #1 place for people to go. There are other ways out of the neighborhood. It would be great if people were using other methods. But anyway, that's the #1 concern, is just wide open. It will be used as a speed thoroughfare. Thanks.
Thank you, Cliff. Anyone else here in the room? Could you please come? Could you please come to the microphone and state your name and address?
Stephen Grafe, I'm at 3910 Rosemary Street, across from and down the street from Mike. I agree with what they both said. Any kind of restriction that does not also have permit parking just is nonsensical to me. I haven't researched the problem that much. I've lived in that street for 40 some years. It's an issue. I don't think the proposal resolves the problem. I think it magnifies the problem and creates more problems for those of us that are living there. So any kind of restriction without permit parking that gives us some kind of protection doesn't make sense. Thank you.
I'm still Murray Horwitz, and I still live at 3903 Rosemary Street, right next door to Cliff and Stephanie. I want to just, there's not much more I have to say, except to second what Steve just said, my across the street neighbor. I was at the PSC meeting in February, and I raised the idea of permit parking. And it was, I can't even remember the reasons. I'm sure it was good and proper, but it was sort of dismissed out of hand, said that can't happen. And I know permit parking can create certain problems. But as Mike Guin said, in most places in the town, I think, if your parking is restricted on one side of the street, there's permit parking on the other side. So I just want to say amen to what's gone before. Thank you.
Anyone else? Let's go to the question we have online. Dee Harris.
Yeah, again, it's a little bit of a comment. I just want to say that I support all of the comments that have been made by the other residents. I used to live on Stanford Street, and I use Rosemary Circle a lot. I'm concerned about the proposal of having parking spaces on the circle, because the circle can also become kind of hazardous. And I think that having parking on the circle is an invitation to having some accidents in a very sensitive space. I mean, I think it's not very well advised. So I would echo the statements made by all the other speakers, and then raise the question of find another solution that other than putting parking on the circle.
Thank you. Do we have other questions online? Looks like we do have a couple questions. Let's go to Gabrielle.
Hi, Gabrielle Fontana, 4208 Rosemary Street. So I live on the other side of the circle. And I spoke, I think it was in March, maybe, after I saw the original proposal. I spoke at the town meeting. And I kind of agree with the first gentleman that came up and spoke. I don't remember what his name was, that eliminating the parking spaces on the side. Because I run after school clubs at the school. So I'm at that area all the time. I feel that all the cars are going to start, if it's open, if it's open all the time with no parking, there's going to be a ton of cars that are just speeding by. And I actually like having the log jam there for a little bit, because it slows the cars down when the parents and the students are going to school and leaving school. And it literally is for 5 or 10 minutes. So I sympathize with the people that are there. But so if you're going to do a no parking, maybe do it certain times. But if you have no parking there all the time, you're going to have cars whizzing down that area all the time, as faster cut through than it is now. So I think it's going to be a safety hazard if you don't limit the time that people are not allowed to park there. And I do sympathize with them that if it's all the time, where are they going to park? So, and I actually park on the circle. So I might disagree with the person that just spoke. I actually like parking on that circle, because if I need to go to the school, I park on the circle and then I go out to Connecticut Avenue. So I actually like the parking on the circle. So I like that part of the proposal. I just don't think there should be no parking on that side all the time, because I think it's going to be a safety hazard for the students and the parents that are walking to school.
Thanks for your comment.
Yep.
REN, could you please state your address?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Arian Clark Harrison. I'm actually the principal at Chevy Chase Elementary School, and I apologize that I couldn't be there in person tonight, but I wanted to make sure that I was able to jump on and just say a few words. So thank you. I appreciate Dave Walton for making sure that he has kept me in the loop with all of the concerns that have been raised. And certainly as a Montgomery County public school in the middle of the neighborhood, we want to be good neighbors. We want to make sure that we are respectful of all the homes around us. And our arrival and dismissal processes, we want to make sure that we do what we can to ensure that it is not intrusive for our neighbors around us. I think that one of the things that is a concern of the school is that we have certainly outgrown our parking lot. And so some of our staff do park on the street during the school day. And so we do utilize some of those spots as part of that parking. But I have told Dave that we will work to, if those spots are eliminated, relocate staff to other locations, but we'll still need to utilize street parking for all of our staff. I do agree with the comments that have been made just about safety. We try very hard to make sure that we have staff members out to monitor our arrival and dismissal process, slowing cars down, just reminding parents to be patient, also reminding those who are coming through to be cognizant of the students and our dismissal processes. So I do echo just the safety concerns that have been raised tonight. I continue to work with MCPS, and I do apologize. I was hoping that MCPS Transportation would actually come on tonight and be part of this conversation. But one of the things that we have talked about at MCPS, and I will continue to work with them on through our transportation, is how our buses come in to the circle to pick up our kids and drop off our kids. If we can navigate them through the community, through Hillcrest off of Bradley and not come down Rosemary, my hope is that part of that helps to alleviate some of the problems that are being created along Rosemary and the backups that are occurring. But we do try very hard to make sure that we move the processes along as quickly as possible. And I will certainly take any feedback that I can to improve those processes for our neighbors. But thank you so much for hearing from me tonight. If you have any other questions, I don't live at 4015 Rosemary Street, but I spend a lot of time there. And so I appreciate all of the council's work. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments? I see a hand raised. Howard Burkhoff, would you please state your name and your role in this whole enterprise?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I apologize for not being there in person. My name is Howard Burkhoff, and I'm chair of the Public Service Committee, and I appreciate the discussion and feedback this evening. I just wanted to clarify for the record in response to a comment made about raising the suggestion of permit parking on Rosemary Street. We did talk about that extensively at the Public Service Committee, and we advised the residents that there is a town policy to submit a petition for permit parking and pointed them to that policy. And I know they were actively working that amongst themselves. So the Public Service Committee supports if the residents want a permit parking policy for that street, we do support that. The Public Service Committee had put that in writing, but ultimately it's up to the residents to decide and submit that petition. Barring that, I welcome any questions that the town council may have with regards to any of the comments and deliberations that the Public Service Committee had during the many months that we took on this issue and had multiple discussions with residents, multiple engagement sessions, and we really appreciate the feedback and engagement from the community that we had over the course of time, 2 public engagement sessions. I also want to thank Principal Clark Harrison for her participation and support as well, and a final appreciation to Dave Walton for coordinating all that from the town staff. Thank you.
Oh, could you come, Mr. Goodwin, back to the microphone, please?
Sorry for arriving. I apologize for arriving again, but hello, Howard. How are you? It's good to see you. And I'd like to comment on, because I know the street has been advised that there is this process that requires a certain percentage. And as I mentioned in my presentation, there are some residents, including some very close, that just do not want to be bothered with resident parking, permit parking, for a number of reasons. But that does not, that's why I said I think it's kind of a special situation, certainly for us, because if you eliminate spaces or restrict spaces across your own house, then that's obviously going to affect that house. And I think, as I said, I think that's been recognized throughout. So I appreciate Howard's input, but I wanted to clarify that right now, given the inputs we've had from all our neighbors, it does not look like the town's traditional permit parking process for normal circumstances would be applicable here. Thank you.
Do we have any other further comments from residents, neighbors, participants online? Let's have some discussion by the council.
Yeah, Howard, there was mention of the PSC looking at Rosemary primarily for the drop-off problems. Did you also look at the idea of the issue of creating a lay-by for passing vehicles, and what was the rationale for selecting those spots that you've selected on the for no parking?
Hey, thanks, Rich. So there's the 5 parking spots that we're talking about by the circle that would essentially enable that to not be a choke point, right, where there's just incredible congestion and jam up there. And then we talked about incidences where school buses or trucks and cars would kind of hit a point where there's we'll say for lack of better words, a Mexican standoff on Rosemary going both directions. And we've had instances where we've had to have buses back up or cars back up. So the idea was to create another lay-by area or a lay-by area further east on Rosemary towards the Meadow Lane intersection. And that's what we had recommended based on discussion with the town staff and observations over time, that there didn't seem to be, that we felt that would not impact parking on the street from residents. I think we saw it would impact maybe one potential parking spot that wasn't utilized for that house that had other means to park. So and also a point that was made was there was some construction that was accomplished last year or 2 years ago, in which that area was a temporary no parking zone during the construction, and there wasn't any concerns with that. There was nobody ever raised any concerns, and it seemed to work pretty well. So we felt that essentially making that a permanent lay-by area would be very helpful to enable traffic to flow better, in the periods of pickup and drop off, which are the highly congested times. Hopefully that answered your question, Rich.
Yeah, and you did do a traffic study there too, didn't you?
Yeah,
Look at the volumes
and
the speeds.
Yes.
On
And
that?
it was, the traffic studies were completed both during the school year and during non-school year. So after the school year, so we could study and evaluate. And the bottom line, there is no speeding issue. The traffic study results show that there is not an issue with speeding on the street, which probably isn't a surprise. And then it showed the volumes and by hour and everything like that. Over.
Okay, the parking around the Rosemary Circle itself, there is parking permitted, correct, right now? It is.
Yes.
Permissible to park there. And your recommendation was to, on that, what is that south side, to delineate parking there to make it more efficient so that actually more cars can park along that side. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts about it. First of all, I was very pleased that Ariane joined us tonight. Rich and I and Dave had a very productive meeting with her. We looked at this issue now many months ago, and really appreciated the school support. I will say that the origin, just to remind my colleagues, the origin of this goes back over a year ago when we were approached by a resident on Rosemary who was very upset about how difficult it was for her to get out of her driveway in the morning and the afternoon. So the whole issue, the review of this matter, was instigated on behalf of a resident, and we knew other residents as well who were very concerned about that issue. That is why we asked the PSC to undertake it, and I'm certainly grateful for the work that Howard and his committee have done, looking at it so carefully, with Richie being the liaison to it. I think that the elimination of the spots during drop-off and pickup make a lot of sense. But I think I do take on board, and I think in the spirit where when we make change, we know, let me back up on another point. We know that changes to traffic and to parking are extremely sensitive, as a given. People care intensely, and they have every reason to care intensely. And I think it behooves the council to move only as fast and as far as it needs to move to try to alleviate the specific situation. That's the problem. There's no need to do more than is necessary. None of these changes that we're talking about involve infrastructure money. So if it turns out that this particular solution, whatever we come up with tonight, does not work, we can move on and find something else. This doesn't have to be the end of the story. And so my personal view is to be cautious and do just what we think is right at the nub of the issue, but not more. I know that there are issues of enforcement, and I'm sure we can take that, into consideration. But right now, my view would be to ban parking during the pickup and drop-off periods, and do that both for the spots near the school and also for the other spots. And I think that would take care of what we understand to be the crux of the matter. And we have to look at what enforcement is required for that. And I'm sure, as we'll find out, it will not always be abided by. But I've come to believe, after being on the council for 10 years and looking at a lot of our regulations, that if you get an 80 or 90% compliance, that's pretty good. And that's sometimes better than trying to be perfect and end up with something that is overboard or beyond what's necessary. So I would ask my colleagues to consider limiting the elimination just to the timeframes which we know are really of the concern. Regarding permit parking, Dave, refresh my, what's the percentage of the homes that need to approve in order to have permit parking?
So under the town's policy, permit parking needs to be requested by 60% of the homes on a block.
Okay, and we have, I guess, counted on the map here. We have what, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah,
16?
They're 18.
18, okay.
And there is a petition that's being circulated. In order to meet the 60% threshold, we need to get 11 responses back. I believe we've gotten 7.
Okay, has every home been approached?
Yes.
I guess we're just coming here. My instinct is I'm loath to change a policy that has worked so well. Again, we've seen this over and over again. I'm not aware, at least in my tenure on the council, that the council has ever mandated permitted parking. We've always been responsive to block by block concerns. And there are a couple of times when we've extended permit parking over the last 10 years, which specifically arose because of construction workers who were wanting to park for free and were coming just past the point in the town where permit parking was required, and they were parking in an area of the street, an area of the town that did not have permit parking. So people on that street realized that they were having an extra degree of traffic of people parking there, and they asked for permit parking, and we granted it. I am loath to change that policy because I feel that local involvement and determination of an issue should be done when it can be. And I would encourage the people who want to see permit parking to talk further with their neighbors and try to work out a consensus so they can get to 60%. But I would prefer to see that before we take any kind of preemptive action.
Yeah, it seems to me they need 4 more houses, right? To make it, okay. And the petition's already gone. I support that as well, that we've tried very hard to figure out what would be the best solution, both for the drop-off times and for this passing situation. And I think we ought to try it incrementally by going ahead and doing the no parking during the school hours doing the parking, the marking of the south side of Rosemary. And then let the residents come forward if they want permit parking. So that would be I'd have support for that.
Tamara?
Thanks. I just wondered, what was the rationale for the complete ban on parking? Was it more enforcement?
Howard, I'll tell you what my recollections were. It was a complaint about being able to not get out of driveways because of that impasse of the cars stopping and clogging the intersections or clogging the roadway.
Driveways.
The driveways. And so it was that creating that lay-by so that you would always have a passing lane. As most places in the town, we do have enough space. You know, people leave spaces and there's enough parking in the town that it's adequate enough for lay-bys to occur. On that street, it wasn't. It was completely packed, and so there wasn't an opportunity for people to pass each other. So that was the original concern. But I think the primary problem was during pickups and drop-offs. So maybe our part of the not allowing during those times might solve some of that. And we can see if it's working, then, and we don't get any complaints.
I would just agree with an incremental approach and, do the least that's necessary to try and solve the problem, assess how it goes, take further action if necessary, make adjustments if necessary. I don't live on the street, but I traverse there frequently, and during school pickup and drop off, it is a challenge. And if we restrict the parking only during those times and sort of assess how it goes, that seems to be a very prudent step. So that's what I would support.
Any other further comments? Could you please come to the microphone, state your name and address?
Georgia Goodwin, 4006 Rosemary Street. Thanks for all the time and the effort you're all putting into this. And it's kind of a complicated problem. My husband said we lived there for 30 some odd years, and I've lost track. And we've seen a lot of changes in approaches to the situation over the time. And there was a time when the traffic was speeding off of Hillcrest, for instance, or coming from Rosemary from the Wisconsin Avenue area, picking up speed on the circle, and then really passing at a dangerous pace in front of the school going towards Connecticut. And we and a couple of other neighbors at that time made a habit of, at rush hour especially, parking cars on both sides of the street because it slowed down the traffic and was safer for the children. And I think that you find that if there are traffic calming measures that are done any place, they make it narrower, not wider. Highways are wider. So I think that's an issue. Speaking just from our own situation, several staff members prefer to park in front of our house because at the end of the day, they can just zip out onto Connecticut. And we pretty much worked along with that, but there's still plenty of days, at least a few days during the week, when if one of us leaves the house and comes back, we can't park in front of the house. If we have things to carry to the house, it's inconvenient. And I think that if we have, and I hate to say this, but I think if we have limited to pick up and drop off, no parking, that means the staff will park in front of our house. So I don't know what the answer to that is, except permit parking. And is it possible to have permit parking at on a portion of the block and not the entire block? Thank you.
I want to, the principal at the school has been very cooperative, and she has assured us that she's going to make every effort that she can to get the staff to not park in places that clog Rosemary Street up. and a matter of fact, he's done some of that already, but I think it's just something, again, that we need to be incremental about it. And this will be an incremental step. And hopefully the residents will complete their petition for permit parking.
Want to ask one question out of sheer ignorance. Especially at pickup times at the school, but even at drop off, the parent is in the car. I mean, does that count as parking if they're stopped there, or is it no stopping and no parking? Because if it's no stopping, that might help solve the problem. But if it's no parking and they're in the car, generally speaking, my observation in the afternoons, somebody's always behind the wheel.
Dave, could you address that?
Yeah, the intent of removing the parking spaces is actually to allow parents dropping off their children to stay in their car and stand in that curb lane. Because oftentimes, because there are parked cars on both sides of the street, those cars end up in the center travel lane, stuck, unable to get onto the circle. So the idea is that if they stand in that lane, that'll actually free up the center travel lane for through traffic.
And that was a real concern for the safety of the kids, because the parents with both of those cars parked on either side, they would drop the kids off on that middle lane of the school and then have to cross over into the school. So that was the reason to allow stopping in that area.
So that children weren't crossing the street in the middle of the street. That's not good. Barney?
Yeah, Ariane, I have a question for you. What specifically are the time slots that you would define as the drop off and pickup times?
Our drop off is 8:30 to about 9 o'clock. Although I think that the flow of traffic slows very much. The heaviest traffic is probably between 8:35 and 8:50. As far as dismissal is concerned, parents start lining up around probably 3:15, if not 3:10. We actually start our dismissal process about 5 minutes early by calling car riders down so that we can start moving that lane through. Please don't tell MCPS that I do that. But we try to get the car line moving as quickly as possible. So we start moving them at 3:20, and it's usually pretty clear by 3:25, 3:30.
And Ariane, can I ask you about the bus traffic that passes through Rosemary, and would this traffic restriction, the parking restriction, alleviate the passage of buses through there?
Our buses usually, the way that they're timed, we usually are able to stage them, the first set of buses, fairly easily along with the car traffic. And then we have a second set of buses that arrives a bit later, and they don't have any trouble getting through. We had talked with MCPS Transportation about having our buses come into the circle from the south end of Hillcrest in order to avoid any backup with bus traffic on Rosemary to help that situation. I don't think that has been communicated to bus drivers officially yet, but I'll continue to work on that just to help alleviate that traffic along Rosemary. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Tambra?
I just wondered, maybe this is infrequent enough so it wouldn't matter, but what about half days or 2-hour delay days?
On our early release days, students are dismissed at 12:55. We do the same thing. We try to start our car rider movement at about 12:50, and we're usually done about 1:05. On our delay days, our students come into the building at 10:45, and so there is traffic between 10:35 and 10:50, But on delay days, because it is inclement weather, sometimes we have a bit more traffic with families bringing their students via car.
How many half days do you have a year? How common is that?
It varies from year to year. It's hard to say. This year there were maybe 3 half days. Next year there are going to be a few more because they've added some more to the calendar. I would have to count those up for you officially.
My comment is, I think here we have to apply some rigor to what we're going to ask for. We can't be floating too much, and we're not going to get something that's perfect. In my own head, the reason I asked the question, thank you very much for the response, Ariane, is I feel that we have to be very careful and very clear to residents, anybody else who'd be parking. And I also feel that you have to ask for the spaces to be vacated some period of time before you get to the moment when she's talking. So I would have said, if the normal day is 8:30, that the parking spaces have to be clear by 8 and they stay clear until 9. And in the afternoon, they have to be clear by 2:30 and they stay clear until 4. That's simple. I don't think we can handle half days, frankly. And I feel that if we have delayed opening, chances are there's not going to be a lot of traffic anyway, because there's a reason why there's a delayed opening, which affects a lot of people. So I think we shoot for the 80% solution, and we get something, however, that is absolutely clear in its signage and thereby enforceable, and that's what it is. That'd be my recommendation. But I don't know if there's any, Arian, do you want to speak to that? Do those timeframes make sense to you? And
So the time frame was 8 to 9 and then 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock?
2:30 to 4.
2:30 to 4. I think
the idea is to make sure that the parking spaces get cleared out prior to the time that parents come to pick up the kids.
absolutely. And I think that will allow my staff also just to monitor that so that nobody parks there during those times. I think that's absolutely workable.
And Councilmember Rush, if I could add, because I had a similar thought to Councilmember Leonard and to yours. Whatever language you choose for the resolution needs to be able to be adapted to the Maryland Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So we can't make it too complex and address half days and delay days without making the sign very complex. And I note that the Maryland Design Manual does provide that the sign can say no parking 8 a.m. to X p.m. school days only. So, that would eliminate enforcement in the summer when school is out of session.
But I think we heard that the real concern is really these two very specific times of the day, and there's no reason not to allow the parking spaces to be used other times of the day, and it may even be helpful for safety to allow the parking spaces to be used. So
And weekends.
and weekends too, of
Weekends
course,
as well.
yeah, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so the design manual suggests the language school days only. So the restrictions would apply only when school is in session.
Correct. That'd be the thought.
Any other comments? So as I read this, looking at the text of the traffic control resolution, so let's get lawyerly, Ron, we would change this if we were all in agreement that we would want to restrict parking during those hours between 8 and 9 and from 2:30 to 4 school days only. So be it resolved, blah, 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 blah. The parking of vehicles on Rosemary Street in the areas depicted, no parking on the attached plan is prohibited during these particular hours, school days only. And then the town manager is hereby authorized to do this and the other thing.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what we would agree on. Okay, shall we have? I make a motion Yes. to agree to that.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And I would like to say that this is an incremental approach, and we will definitely monitor the outcome of the decision that we've made this evening. We certainly encourage any residents anywhere who want to have parking restrictions on their street to, to petition the council for that. And, if we find that this situation is not working out the way that we intend with improvement for the school and the surrounding residents, then we can certainly revisit this.
Right, thank you.
So thank you all
Thank
for
the
your,
committee, too.
yes,
You're doing a
thank
lot
you
of
all
work.
for your comments. I want to thank Howard and the committee and Rich for making, for working so hard and so long on this with residents and yourselves.
Howard
because
put
it's-
up a heart.
I
to show
saw
you
that.
first night.
I saw that.
Thank you, Howard.
We love
yeah.
you too, Howard.
It's a tough job. And, I want to thank the principal as well, Ariane Clark Harrison, for attending this evening. On to our final public hearing of the evening, the ordinance to amend front yard hedge regulations. If I may ask Todd to give us a little background on this. And Dave, you're also certainly welcome to chime in. We've had some traffic, I noticed, on the town listserv as well about this, but I think there's some background that's due before we begin our discussion.
Sorry, I was taking minutes. Dave, can you take this for me?
Sure. So the town currently has an ordinance that prevents hedges or prohibits hedges in front yards of interior streets taller than 3 feet and prohibits hedges on Bradley, Connecticut, and East-West taller than 6 feet with some grandfathering provisions. The proposed amendment that's being considered tonight is to address a situation where the front yard of the property is depressed well below the height of the sidewalk and the curb. And so looking at it, we determined that it didn't make a lot of sense to restrict the height of a hedge that's below the height of the sidewalk to only 3 feet. So we're proposing an amendment to allow the height of the hedge to be measured from the taller of either the elevation of the sidewalk, or if there's no sidewalk, the nearest curb, or from the ground beneath the hedge, to just make it a little bit more equitable for those properties where.
Okay, does that mean that somebody wrote in about, does that mean a hedge on any place in the front yard can't be higher than 3 feet?
That is the way that the ordinance is strictly read under the code. Obviously, many people have foundation plantings that are taller than 3 feet. There are hedges that extend slightly past the front wall of the house along a side yard that are taller than 3 feet. And all of those hedges are developmentally non-conforming or probably violate the town's hedge ordinance.
So the intent was the very front of the property not screened from the street.
Right.
Yeah,
You
the
could be
idea
at
was
3
to
feet.
the idea was to preserve open sight lines, which is a goal of the
Yeah,
town.
Right.
The hedge prohibition or the regulations regarding hedges were passed at the same time as the town's front yard fence ordinance. And I think the council at that time wanted to prohibit front yard fences, and they thought that people would install hedges as a workaround. So they passed both ordinances at the same time.
So do you want to have thoughts about I can't imagine that we want to prohibit hedges from 3 feet, higher than 3 feet in the interior of the lot towards the house. I mean, in front of your, like you said, foundation plantings.
Are you giving a hint to what the current liaison to the LUC should be taking up?
Yes,
as a matter of
I am.
I accept that.
Okay.
I accept that assignment, sir.
Okay. All right.
I will
Very good.
definitely, it's on the list.
Okay.
Dave and I are beginning to put together a list of things we'd like to carry on to simplify some of our code.
Yeah.
There are a few other items on that list too, but this is one that's now being entered.
Within X feet. Great.
Do we have any comments from the public regarding the hedge regulation? We recognize this is something that deserves some cleanup. Do we have any comments online regarding this? Yes, D. Harris.
Yeah, thank you for raising this. And I only heard about this last night. And so I sent a message in this afternoon, which was extremely poorly worded because I had only 5 minutes to write it. So I apologize for that. But I just think it needs a little bit of clarification what this means for, first of all, existing hedges that exceed those heights that are in front yards or in the second front yard of what is considered a second front yard, which is actually a side yard for properties on the corner. What is the there are a lot of places that have larger hedges, and I think mostly, I think that the edge of the town, the same way that Bradley and Connecticut and East West or whatever the other town road was, the edge of the town should have different parameters that because there is a need for visual screening when you are on the edge of the town, such as my property is, but I'm not on Bradley and I'm not on Connecticut. So there are a number of things that are kind of quickly outlined in my letter, but I would really appreciate understanding what the thinking is and what the rationale behind the proposed ordinance is.
Dave?
I'll address that, because it came up in discussion when I was mayor and I was being asked about it. This was a property on, I guess it was Leland, where immediately after the sidewalk, as you go into the property, it sinks over 6 feet. And they wanted to put a hedge that was 6 feet high. Well, at 6 feet, that hedge would be equal to the level of the sidewalk. Dave brought this up to me, and I said, obviously, this was not the intent to have a homeowner who finds their front yard to be deeper below this level of the street to be hit with a hedge ordinance, which was the implication when it was put in place was you were dealing with hedges that were basically growing from a level basically at the same elevation as the sidewalk. So all this does is basically take account of that particular and very precise situation. That if the yard is below the street level, essentially there is extra room for the hedge because there's that much additional height before you even get to the level of the street. That's all. So it's correcting that singular point. In terms of any other issues, that's something which is we're just in a jocular way saying we can take up and visit later on in the course of next year. But we do want to correct this one feature so that we are not in a position of a homeowner having to come to get a variance for something which seems really, frankly, not necessary.
Okay, and that wasn't clear for the non-initiated in reading it. So it would be great if you do have time to take it up again later in the year and clarify.
We plan to do that. And there was an outline of the issue that was set out in the reporter from the last council meeting. I went through exactly this understanding of why we were asking for this or suggesting this change.
Some of us don't get to read everything. Sorry about that.
And Councilmember Rush, I can just quickly add to that to address the resident's comment. The code does currently provide that non-conforming hedges that existed as of November 8, 1986 forward, are allowed to remain as long as they're maintained so that they don't interfere with pedestrian and motorist sightlines. So that's in the code now already.
And I do want to highlight what Todd said. The town is starting the survey of the sidewalk clearances, and we'll be dealing with that by letters to individual homes where the hedges impede upon the sidewalk, and then if they don't do anything about it, the town will do something about it.
Right. And actually, on that point, if I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
On that point, I'd encourage, because there have been some listserv conversations, it would be good if you could, in the reporter, if that could be cited, that survey is undertaken and homes are going to be asked to comply with the hedge for their current ordinance and SOP.
So if I may clarify then for my colleagues, what we would be voting on tonight is this particular change so that the resident who has hedges that are that, or where it falls, 6 foot below the sidewalk, can install their hedges without fear of violating the law. And that on a go-forward basis, the Land Use Committee is going to look at this particular part of our code and spruce it up a bit so that we're clear.
No pun intended.
Pun intended.
All right, I'll give you credit for the pun.
All right, then, do I have a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
So
All in favor?
just one point of clarification. So we're having a hearing tonight, but we actually can't adopt it tonight. We'll have to adopt at the,
That's right, because of the timing issue.
yes.
We have to
We'll
give
adopt
30
it.
days, is that?
Yeah,
Okay,
we have to
so-
give the county council notice because this changes our building regulations. And although it doesn't seem like the hedge regulations are building regulations, the state law that gives us the authority for our building regulations does mention hedges. So we want to follow that procedure, give the county council notice. They need 30 days to possibly give us comments. I don't expect any comments, but I sent that notice today. And so we don't have 30 days between now and our June meeting. So it'll have to be adopted at the July meeting.
Joy, if the county council take this up, I will absolutely vote against every single one of the members for wasting their time on this issue.
All right, point taken. So we will not adopt this. We will not have a vote on this until the June meeting, July meeting.
July, yeah.
Oh, right, because they need their 30 days. On to council discussions. So this ends any opportunity for anybody to make any formal comments. So you can listen to us deliberate. And we're going to start with a presentation by members of the Climate and Environment Committee on a recommendation that they have regarding our approach to recycling. So this is council discussion, so I just want to set expectations and let you all know this is the beginning of a conversation about how we might want to revise the way we handle recycling in the town.
How about if I stand over here, Michelle? So you
Oh, no, it's fine. Okay, so I just want to say thank you for allowing us to
Could you
come.
state your name, please, and your address?
Michelle Grace. I'm here as the co-chair of the Climate and Environment Committee. And we're reporting on one of the initiatives that we have, which is looking at recycling, the town's recycling program. We'll talk about the specifics of that initiative in a second. But I wanted just to say thank you very much to everyone for allowing us this time. And also, very importantly, thank you to the subcommittee, the recycling subcommittee, that has done a lot of work educating and investigating the recycling issue. So just to name the names on the subcommittee, we have Jessica Langerman, who is the chair of that subcommittee, who is here as well. Pilar, who is next to her, and Thornton back there as well, is also on the subcommittee, right, Thornton? Yes, thank you. And Linda is on the subcommittee. She'll be walking you through the presentation. And Allison Fox and Chris Files are also on that subcommittee. So I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. And thanks to town council members for giving us the opportunity to share our recycling initiatives update. So let's see if I can make this work.
You guys had your own logo. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, we have a talented member that came up with that. We even have buttons.
If Howard's still on the phone, you need to get a PSC logo going.
Okay,
You
so
got
we started our year with a review of the September 2025 survey of town residents about climate and the environment, and looking specifically at the questions related to recycling. We had 167 residents who responded and some key takeaways of those that responded: 100% already recycle. 62% would recycle more if more items could be recycled. About 58% would support dual stream recycling if more items could be recycled. And there were 24% who said they might support it. And 38% said that they thought they would recycle more if they had more information about how to do it, or if they could be assured that things they were recycling were actually going to be recycled. So those were the key takeaways from the residents. And this is what we used to formulate our initiatives for this year, was their information. So we had two initiatives, which I'm going to describe in the nutshell here, one slide, and then we'll dig into what we learned under each of them. So our first initiative was that last point, to help the residents maximize the recycling under our current system, so that we can get the most benefit from participating in it. And we did a number of things under this initiative. We held a Beyond Plastics event to learn more about the plastic crisis and what we can do about it. We, as a committee, with Barney joining us, we toured the Waste Management Recycling Processing Center that handles our recycling to learn more about what happens to our recycling. We followed up after that with additional questions to clarify what is being recycled. And then we wrote new, updated, clarified recycling guidelines that we posted on the town website and that we mentioned in the forecast and the town crier. So those are available now. We also had a second initiative, and that was to learn more about single stream versus dual stream recycling. And for that, we went on a tour of Montgomery County's dual stream recycling center to learn, well, what's the difference between how single stream and dual stream is handled. We researched the pros and cons of the two systems, and now we're presenting our learnings to you all with the hope that we can help inform your upcoming decision-making as our current contract expires and you need to have a new waste and recycling contract. So digging in a little bit more to what we learned under the first initiatives, the plastics recycling talk in early November was early January was very interesting, was well attended, and our speaker, Dee Dee Bild, gave us a lot of useful information, of which I'm going to highlight just a few things. I think we all know this, plastics have become ubiquitous, but maybe didn't know that since 1950, the production and consumption of plastics has increased by 200% in the United States. And it's projected to continue increasing in North America, even while the EU, China, and other countries are projected to level off. So we're going to be having more plastics being used, according to these predictions. And the other part of it that's not really good news is that only 5% of plastics are currently being recycled in the United States. And that number has not been going up recently, and I'm going to explain why in a few slides from now. So the key point here is that we have an opportunity. More recycling is certainly possible, and that could help with this problem in addition to recycling other materials. Here's some photos from our action photos from our visit to Waste Management. You can see up on the upper left here, that's where our recyclables come in and are put in a very large pile. And so everything that we threw into our bin is then separated again into glass, plastics, metals, aluminum, and so forth. And to do that, there is a whole setup of conveyor belts, machine sorting, and people, human beings, sorting our trash. So some of the key takeaways from this visit is we learned about recycling contamination And that results because, as you can see, even looking at this first slide here, where the cardboard has been separated from the rest, even in this, you can see a little bit of plastic. That's contamination of our cardboard stream. And it's really impossible to completely 100% separate things that are, you can see, so well combined when they come in. So that contamination is a problem, and it happens with all of the different types because it reduces the value of that recycling, and it reduces the number of sources or that want to take that recycling. And the second problem that was a surprise to us and also a concern that we addressed in our forecast notice is that people have been putting batteries in recycling, and they've had something like 50 fires since the facility opened. So lithium batteries, especially the very small ones, even come in greeting cards. They're a big problem, safety hazard, as are things like Christmas lights, which jam up the machine. So those things are a problem, and also putting in liquids, which degrades the paper. We learned a lot there. This is the new recycling guide that we came up with. It's very simple to read and use, and we hope it'll be a help for residents under our current system. Now let's move to initiative number 2, the pros and cons of dual stream versus single stream. And just to clarify, single stream means residents put all of their recycling in one bin that's picked up. And dual stream means residents put paper products in one bin and everything else in a second bin. Okay. All right, so one of the first things we learned in this second initiative is that the economics of recycling have changed a lot since 2010 and since 2013, when our town switched from dual cycling to single stream cycling. At that time, a lot of recyclables were just going all mixed together to China or someplace else in Asia and sorted there. But what happened was that this market became greatly reduced beginning in 2013 and really reduced in 2018 when China banned all imports of US recyclables and other nations followed suit. So the result was by 2018, the portion of recyclables that were being sent to landfill had risen from 7% in 2008 to 25%. And then at the same time, now the recyclables are being handled domestically. The domestic buyers wanted clean materials. And so the market has switched to wanting cleaner recyclables, and the revenues for contaminated recyclables from single stream recycling can be up to 70% less than the value of recyclables from dual stream recycling. This is particularly true for paper and cardboard. Okay, another thing that we learned is that it really is a fact that recycling saves energy and conserves natural resources, and you can calculate it. I use the EPA's IWARM tool, individual waste, what was it called? Waste reduction model tool, to figure out how much energy I save with my weekly recycling. So I put the numbers into their little form there of the things I might typically recycle in 1 week. And I was very surprised to see that just my recycling alone was equivalent, and it was just like 20 pieces of paper, a cardboard cereal box, newspapers, a few cans and bottles, that the energy saved by recycling those materials is equivalent to running an air conditioner for 8.5 hours, or lighting a CFL light bulb for 1,000 hours, or most relevant to me, who spends a lot of time on my computer, 258 hours on my computer. So these are real savings that can be calculated and multiply it by the whole town. And then if everybody could increase substantially what they recycle, it grows. So when we think about it this way, more from a sustainability and from the economics, and we are lucky to be living in Montgomery County because Montgomery County is really leading the way on waste reduction and sustainability. There's an initiative that they adopted a few years ago called Aiming for Zero Waste that has a whole big plan around it. There've been public hearings, reports, and so forth. No time to talk about it tonight, although I did give you the link, but I do want to talk about a couple of relevant parts of it. It maintains their dual stream recycling and complements it with outreach and education and a volunteer program. And then another big component of it is that there are plans which need to be approved by the Executive Council this year for building an advanced waste processing facility. And this would complement the dual stream for residents, that participate in that, with pulling recyclables out of the main waste stream for residents who don't recycle. So they would recover using this advanced waste processing facility an additional 50% volume of recycling. Since 2018, due to all these things I just described, there are many jurisdictions across the United States that are switching back or have switched back to dual stream. On the left, there are some of the town symbols for some of the towns we talked with or talked to their representatives about, mainly in New Jersey, New York, Florida. But even more relevant to us, there are many towns that are neighboring jurisdictions that have either switched or are continuing dual stream. And these include sections 3 and 5 of the Village of Chevy Chase, Bethesda, Kensington, thanks, I had to put my glasses back on, Silver Spring, Tacoma Park, Potomac, and Glen Echo. So the people are already making changes, and we have a good model with Montgomery County's new system. Next topic was comparing the two facilities that are available to us: Waste Management, our single stream facility, and Montgomery County Dual Cycling Center. We wanted to know, basically, what does one recycle that the other doesn't? Can we meet residents' desire to be able to recycle more if more things could be recycled? So we looked first at paper, and this is the Montgomery County does recycle newspapers and mail, envelopes, shredded paper, magazines, books of various kinds, cardboard, paperboard, and wax-coated cartons, boxes, and frozen food containers. If we compare it to what we can recycle through Waste Management, there were several categories that they do not accept, and most notably the wax-coated milk and juice cartons, frozen food boxes. Looking at plastics, Montgomery County accepts all resin codes except 6, and including clamshells, and Waste Management accepts numbers 1, 2, and 5. Plastics are difficult. Both of them are able to actually recycle. They accept, but they can also recycle 1 and 2, and they do. For the other resin codes, the Montgomery County sends them to their waste energy recovery facility, where they're basically incinerated and turned into electricity, whereas Waste Management sends them to the landfill if they get them. They're not trying to get them. They go in their waste stream.
So even though Montgomery County accepts all those things, they only recycle the
1
same.
and 2.
The same. They only recycle 1 and 2, where Waste Management recycles 1, 2, and 5.
I did get some information from Montgomery County at like 5 p.m. today. We've been trying to follow up with them because I was very curious about that when they're accepting all these resin codes, what do they have the market for?
What do they actually recycle?
Exactly. And so the answer is very difficult to get these answers, I will say. But the answer is the market is accepting the materials listed on their webpage. So these are you can see what we showed you, the materials that were listed on their webpage. The market accepts.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6?
Not 6.
Everything except 6.
Everything except 6. I'll be honest with you, when it says the market accepts, do they have a market for that?
Right.
That's a question I will need to follow up with that, right? Because yes, we understand that, but if the market isn't there, then we don't have that. So we're trying to get some further clarification on that.
If our single stream recycler does 1, 2, and 5, and we know they recycle
They don't really do 5. They have a very limited market. They don't advertise that they do 5. They can recycle some of the 5s, but they're not wanting us to send them more 5s because they can't even sell all of the 5s that they have now.
Okay, but I guess my question is if our single stream recycling now does 1, 2, and 5, even though it's limited, that's the same that gets recycled at Montgomery County.
That is correct, except I think unless what I found out today does mean that they have a market for it. Right. Like I don't remember.
No, it's a very important.
It is a very important and question.
Yeah, because our contemplation is, do we want to switch from a single recycler, which now our guys do 1, 2, and 5. Do we want to switch to Montgomery County, which does 1, 2, and 5?
And they also do, but they also go back to.
Do go to make electricity as opposed to going.
Well, there's a debate about whether that's good for the environment or not. So, but that's all the kinds of things we need to be thinking about,
right?
As we do this. Yeah. So it's very important to get that information about what they actually recycle.
Right. And what they recycle now is not necessarily what they're going to be able to recycle in the future.
It's the same thing for waste management. If there'll be a market there, they'll start doing it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll just say this briefly, but I've thought about this and I've thought there's different ways to incent people to recycle. And if you say you can recycle all of these things, we're actively looking for markets. We have markets for some, but we don't for others, but we'll get there. We don't have to re-educate every time the market changes. Versus another organization that says, okay, we have our markets for this now, you can recycle this. 6 months later, that changes, now we have to re-educate, so it's.
Yeah, and the other thing, we went through this to go to single recycling single stream, because we felt more of the community would recycle something, right? And that's where we're at now. We've got almost 100, well, in your survey,
correct,
100% participation in the single stream recycling. If we went to dual stream recycling, I'm curious, we won't know until we would do it, but what percentage of the people would continue to recycle? Is it becoming more inconvenient for them to separate their own waste because people take the easy way out? And that was why we went to single stream recycling to begin with, was we felt that would increase the participation of the town in recycling.
The trend is that you can't get as much money for stuff that's contaminated. And so if we get on the bandwagon of having cleaner recyclables, there's more future for our recyclables, more of that can be recycled. It's more economically, has more of a future, and to my mind. The other thing is, if we go with the Montgomery County system, we'll be automatically included in the system that also sorts through all the residents that don't recycle and gets their recyclables out of the trash.
That was my question. A waste recycling facility is a hugely expensive proposition.
Well, they're weighing spending almost $400 million on the incinerator facility in order to bring that up to code, or closing that and instead creating this APW.
facility, even in any budget projections in the county.
This is part of their initiative.
We want to do it. Is the county going to do it?
County is the one that is proposing this and has been holding hearings. Okay. Okay.
So the county is proposing,
Yes.
but has the county council actually budgeted for a waste processing facility? That seems to be another fact point you need to find out.
Yeah, and actually, if I could just get you to move on, because we've got a couple other
We're actually almost
items.
done.
This
We're
is,
almost-
as I mentioned before, this is the beginning of our conversation.
Exactly. But we have a link to their report in this presentation, and you can go and you can see the cost analysis that they've done for that.
We'll follow up with,
Yes.
we'll try to look.
We've
through
been
that.
good at researching. Okay. Let's see. So let's see, we did those.
Mhm.
Okay. Of the rest of the recyclables, Montgomery County does glass, steel cans, aluminum cans, aerosol containers, and aluminum foil products. And Waste Management does not do aerosol cans or aluminum foil products. Okay, so here's where we come to, we had a little handout of.
Yes. We are handing this out in the interest of just making sure that since it's being recorded, we didn't want numbers to get out into. This is from, this is from the Village of Chevy Chase. They recently redid their collector contract. Mrs. Todd sent this to us, so thank you, Todd. And so they bid their services, single and dual stream, rear pickup, curbside for each of them. And to three different companies responded. So that's kind of the main part of the chart. And then on the far right-hand side, the projected town of Chevy Chase cost based on, the village of Chevy Chase, just increasing it for the the number of houses we have more than they do. And so the very bottom line, this is our current town of Chevy Chase cost per month for recycling. And then you can see under the different scenarios what it would potentially be.
And this is like really back of the envelope, because all we did was we adjusted by the higher number of residents that we have. So we increased the number by the proportion of more residents we have. We have no idea if this is actually how they would be bid.
Do they have those three firms, the ecology, no waste management, does their own recycling? Does ecology and GCI send them to the county?
So GCI is our current collector, so they would send it to Waste Management, right?
But for dual, they would have to bring it to the county.
Correct. And then Ecology Services, looking at other websites, other towns that are dual services, they use Ecology Services, then that would be going to Montgomery County. And, okay, go ahead. You have a question? Well,
Waste Management is the recycling facility.
And the
Cody is the one that actually picks up our recycling.
Which is GCI.
GCI. Yeah, and they can deliver either to Waste Management Recycling Facility or to Montgomery County Recycling Facility. Or just the collector.
So the village of Chevy Chase make any of those distinctions about where those contracts would send their recycling?
I don't know.
Okay.
So that seems
It was
like
a question that I thought as well too, but I didn't,
Further discussion.
Okay, so just summing it up, the pros of the single stream, easiest for residents, all materials in the same container. We've been assuming participation is higher, we don't really know, and there's lower collection costs. Dual stream pros, more items can be recycled, there's less contamination, so those items have more value, more markets for reuse. Dual stream is in line with what our residents wanted in terms of being able to recycle more. It's in line with neighboring towns and with a sustainability initiative to reduce waste across Montgomery County and with the changing economic scene. If we can retain our collection volume, we'd be sending less to the landfill, improving energy and resource conservation, and lowering our carbon footprint. So our recommendations as a committee are, and honestly, when I started this, I had no opinion. Really, I was very impressed when we went to Montgomery County facility
waste management.
waste management facility. But after doing all this research, I think we all came to the conclusion together that we actually needed to make the recommendation from our committee to switch to dual stream recycling as the way of the future, the more sustainable and the one with the most potential. And to continue educating residents to make sure everybody knows how to recycle. And if we do choose, or if you do choose the curbside recycling, to consider assisting neighbors who may have difficulty bringing their recycling to the curb. That's it. We have a few more websites to look at, especially this one by the EPA. The top one is like a step-by-step guides communities through managing their waste streams.
Thank you
And
very
that's it.
much. Thank you
We're
so
done.
much for putting so much work into this and the field trips and your enthusiasm about this. Can you share this presentation, please, with the council?
We will.
And we will continue to have discussions with staff about this issue.
And please reach out to us with questions, things that need to be followed up on. We are happy to help in this endeavor. Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to make, I think we're all extremely in favor of recycling, and to the extent that it actually gets recycled,
Yes.
right? And so we don't want to do something in the town that lowers the amount that we are actually recycling now that gets recycled. So that's kind of the
Right.
Yeah.
Make one comment. First, thank you very much. This is really, really interesting and a lot of good material. And also, without referring to the numbers we saw precisely, I think it'd be helpful as we deliberate and as we come back and ask you questions, because I certainly will have them, that we make sure we do not conflate two issues. We do not, and I think the information you have here allows us to tease apart single stream versus dual stream and curbside versus backyard. And so I could imagine a result which says dual stream, but we could still keep it backyard, might have a very different answer and degree of support among residents, as distinct from feeling that if we go back to dual stream, we have to haul it out to the curb. So I think making sure we keep the lens open and consider all the different options so that we end up, if we were to change, both presumably getting better results in terms of how much is recycled, but not causing a decline in the willingness of residents to support the program. So if we can work with all the different options, we may end up with something.
And just if you're interested, since recycling has been out, since we put the new guidelines out, people have on the town listserv, I know this is only a certain, it's not everyone in the town, have commented. And so we've collected comments and we've gotten some positive comments for recycling, dual stream recycling, and not too many negative comments. And we're happy to share this.
Yep, please share that with us as well.
Include this with the presentation.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
We'll
you.
also include the slide from the experiences of the other towns that have switched and how it went for them.
Perfect.
And why they switched.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you for the
Thank
time. I
you
know
all.
you're all here very late.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much. So now, in the interest of time, let's move on to our last couple of council discussion items. The next one is park maintenance. We, back when I was on the council before, I was part of a long set of discussions related to the renovation of Zimmerman Park, which just seemed to go on and on and on. And I really want to compliment our staff for sticking with that project that I think started back in 2018. But we have a beautiful, beautiful park in Zimmerman, lots of amenities, and I see a lot of people enjoying that park. And we recently had a yappy hour last week, which was very well attended. We had some comments though about the what's happened to the park since we updated it, and I just wanted to have a conversation about this with colleagues on the council, and discuss their impressions of the yappy hour, the way the park is looking, and how we might better maintain it.
I love it. It's a great park. And the path is wonderful too. My dog and my wife and I enjoy it regularly. Yeah, I just think it's lovely, really, really nice. And it's, looking back at what we invested in that, it seems like a tremendous value for what it cost. So well done, my view.
I take my dog down there to walk as well. But I am concerned about maintaining the greenness of that grass. And I was looking at it today, and it's getting a little spot. So I think the town needs to water, do some stuff to keep that grass green in that area. And I know we put some hydrants in there so we can water if we want to. So we need to start keeping it green. The other thing, the yappy hour, I think was a huge success. I didn't get to go. I was out of town. I would have gone. And I think that compromise that we originally reached, which was to make it a kind of an ad hoc event that happens every once in a while, was a very good compromise. And it, just by the attendance, a lot of the town people really appreciated it. So I think that worked out well as well.
Add that, well, actually, I might have been the only one who went to the yappy hour. Of course, with my dog Henry and my husband. It was a wonderful event. I think they really knocked it out of the park with, the attendance and the way it was handled with the entry gate and lots of people helping. So it was a big success. But I have also noticed, in addition to the grass, the sort of low shrubs on the side, kind of, I guess, bordering sort of between the path and the green area, seem to get a little dry, and it's probably, weather related, but seems hard to keep them. Yeah.
Also, I echo everyone's comments. I want to give a shout out to Steph Martz. I think she really provided the crucial engine here to actually get it to happen, and certainly also to John Lloyd for helping to develop the actual structures and figuring out the very low cost way, but very economic and sensible way, not only to put in a fence, but to have the dual gate necessary to really ensure safety. So really, I think hats off to everybody, but I wanted to call out those two names in particular. I am concerned about the quality of the grass. I'm surprised at how much it's degraded over the last year. Now, as John pointed out to me, we had perfection when the turf went in. So it's not fair to say that you're going to keep it perfect. But I think, and I've had some discussions in my days as mayor with Todd on what can be done, and just ask as a general matter to the staff to come back with some ideas for what we can do to try to keep that grass in better shape. And we know we have to comply with the Montgomery County pesticide and herbicide ordinance. No one's questioning that, but there are other things that perhaps can be done. And I think it would be good for us as a council to ask the staff to do some further work on that, and come back with whatever they think makes sense for us to try to hold that green as we reasonably can. And it's material in terms of people's wanting to use that park and enjoy it. if we have events and they want to sit down, well, they want to sit down on grass, not on dirt. We want to play on grass. And so I think we do have a vested interest in trying to keep that lawn and encourage and ask the council to support staff looking into that and seeing what they can come up with.
Thank you. Todd or Dave, do you have any further remarks on this, or you'll take this back and report on us at a later date?
Yes, we will take it back and report on it. One of the changes that we actually requested in our new bid for landscaping services is to actually aerate and overseed the park twice a year versus just in the spring or the fall. We're going to do it both in the spring and the fall to help maintain the turf. We'll look into some additional watering, but it's very little sometimes you can do watering and just not being able to use pesticides and herbicides with the increased use of the park and the dog urine and the kids running around is going to be rough on the turf. And other than aerating and overseeding twice a year or resodding, which is prohibitively expensive, we'll look into some ideas and options and we'll report back to the council.
Thank you. Thank you. Now on to our final item for the evening. And this is an update to our accessory dwelling unit regulation. I'm going to ask Dave to give us some background on this.
Actually, before we get into that, was there a decision made on the striping of the parking spots on Rosemary as part of the?
Wasn't that included in the?
It's not in the resolution.
Do we have to vote now then? We ought to vote for
It doesn't even require a
think it
vote,
did.
but yeah, as long as we're good with that, I'll let the residents know. I just wanted to make sure I didn't step out of my lane. Great. So for the accessory dwelling units, there is a state law that was passed that says that the town can't have regulations for accessory dwelling units that are more restrictive than other accessory buildings. So 3 or 4 years ago, the Land Use Committee went to quite a bit of work and effort and passed regulations in the town that regulate where in a rear yard an accessory dwelling unit can be placed. So since that time, we've had one permit for an accessory dwelling unit that we've approved. But I guess now we need to create a new ordinance or adopt a new ordinance by October that basically makes our regulations for accessory dwelling units the same as they are for other accessory buildings. I know the Land Use Committee has studied this and made a recommendation to, I don't know if you want to address that, Carlo, or
Summarize it.
yeah, basically, the Land Use Committee's recommendation is to basically adopt accessory dwelling unit regulations that are the same as the town's current accessory building regulations. So that'll relax the setbacks for those ADUs. It's a little interesting. We've had one accessory dwelling unit approved as a permit, but we've had a few buildings that included a sleeping area, included a bathroom, but didn't have a cooking facility that were approved as just regular accessory buildings. So one of the ways that people in the county and the town are getting sort of around the regulation is building the equivalent of an ADU, but not providing a kitchen. So that's something that we've come across. So I think implementing the Land Use Committee's recommendation, sort of allows for them to put a microwave or an oven in those buildings that are already being constructed without the need for variance.
May I interrupt here for a second? Albert, can you, I believe Ron Bolt, our attorney's video has been disabled by host. Can you enable it?
Hope I didn't offend anyone. That's why they turned me off.
You're offensive. You're very
Oh,
offensive.
you do not.
I can't seem to do it myself. It's okay, Ron. We have your audio. It's fine.
Okay. All right. Very good.
We know who you are.
You should be good now.
You okay? Can
Okay.
you
So
enable it?
yeah, there is a draft ordinance in the packet. I had, oh, yeah, start my video. There we go.
There you
Okay,
go.
good. So, I mean, there are many options to bring ourselves into compliance with the state law, but the two main options that jumped out were one, increase the side and rear setbacks for all accessory buildings, and then consider variances for modest structures like sheds. But that seemed a little too burdensome. As Dave noted, there haven't been many ADUs, so that might be killing the fly with the hammer. And the second option, which the LUC recommended, was to delete the special setbacks that we had for ADUs that we put into the ordinance some years ago, and then just rely on our existing provisions in the code, which provide that any accessory building that's under 12 feet tall, the side and rear setback is 5 feet. If it's taller than 12 feet, the rear and side setback is 7.5 feet. And then the town has this provision that the county also has, which acts as a modifier. If the accessory building is taller than 15 feet or longer than 24 feet, then the setback is increased at a ratio of 1.5 feet to every 1 foot over 15 feet in height or 20 feet in length. And so I think the thought is from the LUC that that existing provision is probably enough to address the impact that accessory dwelling units may present on the neighbors, given that we have to operate now under this new state law, which requires local governments to encourage accessory dwelling units in order to address the housing crisis in the state. And just anecdotally, so all my other clients are looking at this issue too, and seem to be following the same path and like the town of Chevy Chase's approach with this existing modifier. So I'm guessing that everyone else in the area is going to end up doing what's proposed here by your LUC.
Can I ask a point of process, Ron? So
Yes.
we're discussing this regulation this evening. We have to update our own code by October 1. Can you go through the timeline that we need to follow in terms of when we have a public hearing on this?
Yes. So our charter dictates the process for adopting legislation. An ordinance needs to be introduced at one meeting, considered at a second meeting after a public hearing. And as a practical matter, that has to be 30 days in between introduction and adoption based on that state law we previously discussed, which requires 30 days notice to the county council when we amend our building regulations. And then after adoption, the ordinance takes effect another 30 days later. So it's basically a 3-month process. And so we want to bring it up now, given that October will be here before we know it, and there's no meeting likely in August. So it probably makes sense to introduce in June, adopt in July, and then have it.
I don't think we can do that, Ron. Let me interrupt. We don't have 30 days between June and July. We have to introduce tonight.
Introduce in June. Okay.
Introduce tonight.
Yeah, that gives you. Introduce tonight.
Yeah.
Public hearing would be in July. Adoption then would be effective August. Can't wait till September because there's not 30 days between the September meeting and October 1.
So we'd have to have an August meeting?
No,
No.
we have to
No.
introduce it tonight, public hearing next month,
Public hearing
Yeah,
next month
But we have to adopt it.
after the public hearing.
after the
Let
public
me
hearing.
see the
No, let me clarify. I'm sorry. Introduction
Adopt it
tonight.
right after the public hearing.
and hearing in
Introduction.
July.
Introduction tonight, public hearing in July. It'll be effective in the middle of August.
Right.
Because there's not 30 days between tonight and the June meeting, which is
Right.
June 10th. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Todd, for clarifying that.
Okay.
Okay, so we are,
May I make a motion to introduce this ordinance to amend our ADU regulation in the town as stipulated here and supported by the Land Use Committee?
do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yay.
One thing I wanted to mention about it, which is, I know Dean had discussed this with you and raised with me, and I want to look into it, which is, there is the issue of what would happen with a accessory building which is right up against the property line. Which we do have a lot of old garages, for example. But they could convert, but if they convert, there's the section 4.7 on non-conforming. And it has a very clear statement that a building in which a detached accessory dwelling unit is constructed must meet the required setback and other requirements of this chapter at the time of construction of the accessory dwelling unit. So effectively, it unwinds the grandfathering and causes so it means that, and this I've worked on years ago, we did not want ADUs to be right up against the property line. And that language prevents that.
Right.
Just pointing that out.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more discussion? All righty. The meeting's.
No, I did.
Oh, that's right. You have one more item, Barney.
Comment, Mike, in discussion about all the vegetative clearance that's going on, and Todd reported accurately and carefully that indeed the town is undertaking exactly what it does every year since we passed the revised standard operating procedures in 2024. That is to survey all the properties and determine which ones have grown out of compliance and send notes to the homeowners to get them to cut it back. And you recall that we set up a width of clearance of 36 inches because that was ADA compliant.
Right.
And we were not requiring it to be the full 4 feet, given some leeway. However, we do have a resident who's written in and asked us to consider, especially for the boulevards, that we widen it. In fact, his recommendation would be to widen it for the full width of the sidewalk. That could be quite severe on some of those hedges. And all I'm doing right now is passing on to you a resident's comment to me as mayor. But it'll be up to us in the future to decide whether we feel it's needed or not to take on some further work on those particular boulevards to further widen the stretches. That's clear. The one other, my own personal view about it is we ought to wait and see what's accomplished with the work that's now going to be undertaken, and see what remains as a real issue. And also, Todd has been in touch with the SHA, as you mentioned, to talk to them about their clearing of these sidewalks, because actually it's their responsibility. We'd like to see what they do. So it's something that may come up, or we might want to bring up in the future if we want some further comfort or safety on those main boulevards. But anyways, for the moment, I just wanted to make sure that my colleagues had the information that had been passed to me.
Yeah, and I think it's reasonable that we be aggressive on our existing policy and see what that brings us, because I imagine some of the things that are going to be done are going to trim some people's hedges back to almost sticks. So let's wait and see what we get.
It will. Well, in fact, there's one hedge that we know of, and we singled this out a long time ago along Bradley, between Connecticut and Hillcrest. And actually, I walked by there today, and it is largely denuded. I mean, they did cut it back, and there are twigs, but that hedge really had overgrown a lot. And it's a risky sidewalk, as we know. So, okay.
Okay, we've concluded our discussions for the evening.
Good first meeting.
Yeah.
Meeting's adjourned.
Great. Thank you.